Hello and welcome back, guys. This is part 2 of the series about how to become a PA and how to choose the right program was part 1. This part is how to become a competitive applicant. I'm going to try to keep it a brief and straightforward video just to give you guys some important information and help you guys in your process of becoming PAs. So, I have a lot of students who shadow me in my clinic, and they all seem to ask a lot of the same questions. And so this is kind of a concise format to explain my answers to a lot of those common questions. So when people come in and they want to know how can I be as competitive as possible to get into PA school, there's about 7 things that I tell them to do. Number 1, apply early to PA school. The application cycle opens up at the end of April every year, and it opens from end of April through the end of the year, basically. Some programs are on a rolling admission, some have deadlines, but I can tell you that you need to apply early. My recommendation is to give yourself 6 weeks from when the programs open up the application on CASPA. So try to submit by June 1st. That is going to set you up because if you think about it, a program has 3,000 applicants. They've already looked through the majority of those within the first few months of summer, and they've already selected who they want to interview. So if you don't submit your application till October, they've already selected the majority of their class. They've already interviewed most of the people that they're interested in. So you really have to be an outstanding candidate. And if you're an outstanding candidate, why didn't you apply earlier? So lesson number 1, apply early to CASPA. The second thing I recommend is having a good solid GPA. You don't have to be a perfect student. You don't have to have a 4.0. I had a 3.5. My wife had a 3.6 or a 3.7. You have to have at least above a 3.0 to be considered competitive, but the GPA is one of those things that it just helps check that box and helps get you competitive. If you can explain why you didn't do well on certain classes. So let's say you had a course that you really didn't do well in and you had to withdraw, or you had to take an F or a D or something like that in the class. You better explain what happened, what went wrong, what you've learned from it, and what you've done differently in the past, and your grades should reflect that. So quick example, I took anatomy and physiology my first year. I didn't study very hard in undergrad because I approached it like I approached every other class. Study the night before the exam, you'll be fine. I failed miserably my first exam. I got a 30%, and I realized that I wasn't going to be able to pass the rest of the course if I continued on, so I ended up dropping the course. The following year, I spent 12 hours every week studying anatomy, maybe 15 on the weekends, and I really became an expert in anatomy, and I was acing every single exam that semester and the following semester, and I learned so much more because of it. What it taught me was how to study. And so when you look at my application, you could see that he did really poorly the first time, he retook it, and he did way better. And it also taught him a valuable lesson, and it helped him grow up a little bit. So they would much rather see that person than somebody who just had a B or a C plus and coasted through anatomy the first time. Okay, so GPA is very important. The next thing, how to become competitive, is your GRE application, part of that. The GRE is just a checkbox, okay? You need to have a score above 300 combined, so a 150 quant and a 150 verbal, and then at least a 4.0 on the writing. I think my scores were like a 3.09. I think I got a 154 and a 155 with a 4.5 writing. That was good enough for me. If you get above a 300, or if you get a low 3s or higher your first time applying, you're done. That's enough. If you don't, then you need to retake it as many times as it takes to get that score. There's tons of different ways to get good at the GRE. It's just a standardized test. You just have to learn how to take it the right way, okay? Next thing is shadowing. So how many hours should I have? What kind of shadowing should I do? Look, they don't expect you to sit with a PA all day, every day for the rest of your life. They want to see that you have shadowed PAs in the field of work that you want to do. So shadowing a doctor, shadowing a nurse practitioner. If you want to go to PA school, you need to shadow a PA. All right, so really try to reach out to contacts. There's different websites that can help you find shadowing. Just ask friends and family if they know a PA, but try to get some shadowing. I would recommend about 40 hours of shadowing experience. So that's enough to say you've done a full-time week with multiple providers. If you can get different specialties, phenomenal. If you can't, do what you can. I was able to shadow 2 different PAs before I was accepted to PA school, and it just helps confirm that that's actually the job you want to do, and you get to see what a PA is capable of doing. So again, shadowing about 40 hours, that's good enough. Volunteer experience, you're going to need to check with the program. That's another way that you can really outshine other applicants, but you need to look at how important is how important is volunteer work to the program you're applying. So some programs you can see on their website that they really prioritize like giving back to the community and volunteerism, and that's really important to those programs, and it's part of their curriculum during the first and second year. So if that's a program you're going to apply to, you better start doing some volunteer work and really having several hundred hours, if possible, of volunteer work. If it's just a standard school and they don't mention a ton about volunteering, then just have enough to check the box. It can be anything you like. I did volunteering at a soup kitchen. There's medical volunteer work. There's just day laboring. There's after school things. I mean, you do whatever you're interested in. It just has to show that you're volunteering your time to care for other people and to try to help give back. So again, that's the recommendation for volunteer work. Number 6 is how many schools should I apply to? I recommend between 5 and 10. I think that's a middle of the ground amount. I applied to 20 my second cycle, and I applied to 5 my first cycle. Of those 20 schools that I applied to, I had 11 or 12 interview offers. I interviewed at 6 or 7, and I was accepted to 2. So if you apply to 5 or 10, it's enough that you have some opportunity. It's expensive, but it is affordable to be able to pay for if you are working at the time. And you can also really get a couple of good repetitions of interviewing before you get to the actual interview process of the schools that you're really serious about. So that would be my recommendation, is between 5 and 10 schools. Lastly is the personal statement. This is the one that a lot of people ask about. How do I write a good personal statement? What are your tips, or what do you recommend? The best advice I can give is don't write the personal statement until about a month before you're applying to PA school. Because a lot of people, they're like 2 years out from applying to PA school and they're already thinking about their personal statement. And it's just, you haven't lived enough life yet. You're not quite ready for that stage of the application. So you're going to work, you're going to volunteer, you're going to shadow, you're going to have experiences happen, and all of those could come together to really give you your answer as to why you want to be a PA. The personal statement question prompt every year is always some variety of why do you want to be a PA? And so there's a million generic answers to that. I want to help people. I want to have a high level of autonomy, but I don't want to go to med school. There's a ton of those answers, and they hear them all. What you need to try to do is you need to try to think about the reasons that are truly unique to you as to why you want to become a PA. Why don't you want to be a doctor? Why don't you want to be a nurse practitioner? Why is this the right career path for you? And then try to come up with a couple of stories that you can share that helped you make that decision or helped craft you into the person that you are and why you're ready for PA school. If you're somebody who is very outgoing, you're really high energy, then that's the writing style you should have. If you're somebody who's more quiet, calm, reserved, then be true to yourself when you write this, because the personal statement is what's going to get you the interview, and the interview is how you share more of your personality and share more of who you are with the program. The other thing I would recommend is don't hand out your personal statement to like 10 different people to edit, because 10 different people trying to change your writing, it's not going to look like you anymore. I would give it to maybe 2 people tops. Have somebody who's really solid with grammar and make sure that it just is written properly, it sounds right, and then give it to somebody for content and make sure that they really like the content and I think the stories are good in there. It's a hard thing to do. You're just going to have to start writing it and start putting pen to paper and come up with what you can. And you can always rewrite it as you go, but don't start writing it too soon. Wait until you're getting closer to your actual application so that you have as much life experience as possible. Anyway, guys, that is kind of the list of things that I recommend to help you become as competitive as possible. Applying early, having a good GPA, getting the right GRE scores, shadowing at least 40 hours, finding out how much volunteer work is important to each program and adjusting how much you do by that, writing a really unique and personalized personal statement, having about 5 to 10 schools that you apply to. The last thing that you want to do is the most important. It is work experience. They need to see that you have hours and hours and hours of work experience. A lot of programs accept hours as a med tech, a medical assistant, a scribe, RN, rad tech, you name it, EMTs, paramedics. They're going to take all of that experience. If you have a full career as somebody before you went to PA school, phenomenal. That makes you look really good. If you are destined that you want to go to PA school right out the gate, start to get jobs in a couple of different areas. So be a medical assistant in a primary care office, then go be a scribe in the emergency department, then go be a medical assistant at a dermatology office, or do things that can show you a lot of different experience in a lot of different areas of medicine so that you can learn as much as possible. I would strongly recommend trying to find a medical practice to work at that has PAs that staff there so that you can get those connections, you can get those shadowing hours with those PAs, and you can also use those PAs as mentors who can help tailor and recommend things to you or help teach you things along the way. Having a mentor is really important as well. So hours wise, every school is going to tell you different about the amount of hours they want you to have, but if you have at least 2,000 full-time hours, that's going to be a very good starting point, and then anything on top of that is going to make you look even better. A lot of people take a gap year, and a lot of programs want to see you take a gap year in between your undergrad and your grad programs because they want you to have life experience, they want you to be outside of academia, they want you to be in the world working, having a paycheck, managing your bills, being a responsible adult for a little bit, because the level of work you have to put in as a PA student versus an undergrad student is worlds different. And if you're not emotionally mature enough to handle that amount of responsibility, then it's not really the right time for you to become a PA yet. Anyway, that's the video, guys. Hopefully that was a helpful list for you guys of things that I would recommend to make you a competitive applicant. Part 3 of this series is going to be about the PA school interview, some common pitfalls that people have, how to make yourself stand out, how to be more competitive. Best of luck to all of you out there. Take care.